So heads up to those of you on Teams today. For some reason, my chat is not working. Every time I go to it, my Teams ends up freezing. So try not to type in the chat too big. I mean, you can, but I won't know what you're saying. So whatever. I don't know what's going on. Literally, I keep trying it, and every time I go to chat, it just like freezes up everything. So I'm just not going to do it anymore. But you guys should be fine. I think it's my first hour. They always use chat, and it like overloads my chat. So I think it's just them. Today, we're going to do a little bit of a deeper analysis than what we've been doing, just because I feel like everyone understands how to analyze something at this point. So now we're going to add to it by doing a little bit of a formal theory analysis. If you remember, formal theory is from chapter 5, that chapter that's only 3 pages long. And it's one of your ways to critically analyze an artwork. Formal theory requires you to look at other artworks of similar themes, natures, and compositions, and discuss the similarities and differences between them. I'm going to be providing the two things that you're going to be comparing, and I am giving you a little bit of background knowledge too, so you should be fine. But let's get started. So the two images that you guys are going to be comparing and contrasting are on this screen. They're both very similar. They are both entitled Pietà. Pietà means pity. It's trying to evoke the pity of the viewer specifically. But with compare and contrast, that doesn't just mean to list what you see for object number 1 and list what you see for object number 2. For compare and contrast questions, you have to actually discuss similarities and differences. So pretend this is like an essay question on a test, because it probably will be later on, and actually write out sentences discussing similarities and differences, not just listing, this is what I see in the first one, this is what I see in the second one. We are moving beyond that. We are growing. Okay, and I'm going to give you guys until 9:40 to do that. So you have about 8 minutes.
The they both along the same time period or
The dates are listed there.
both? Both were okay. Oh,
Yeah, I gave you guys a lot of information this time. Yeah, 4 more minutes.
Naturally, how long do you want to be?
Oh, it's just up to you. There's no like limit or like, this is just practice. Now on the tests in the future, there's also no limit or length. 2 more minutes. One minute. And stop. Okay, now we're going to do what we've been doing and partner up with someone, but instead of just saying, well, this is what I wrote, this is what I wrote. If they wrote something that's different from yours, maybe add it to yours. So if they noticed something that you didn't, add it, okay? So by the end, we should have a pretty comprehensive compare and contrast essay that we can work with to discuss everything. So I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes to share your thoughts and ideas with someone. We have an even number of people in class and online, so good. Everyone picks one person.
So on mine, I said there's a size difference, and the position of Jesus' head, position with Mary's hand, her left hand is in different positions. The stand in the first one detail. Similarities. I said Jesus' hand is hanging down. She has
So for mine, I put they're both expressing a sense of like pity. But I did say just like you that there was a size difference, as well as like detail and color. It's significantly different. Even though they're just trying to portray the same thing, it's just different.
Mhm.
You guys have 1 more minute?
I feel like in the second one, it's like her lap is exaggerated, and then in the first one, I put like his head position seems to be exaggerated. Like it just doesn't. It seems abnormal.
I feel the same way too. Even in the first one, you can see that Jesus is smaller and skinnier. It's a little bit more sad.
Oh, I didn't see that. Like his body is like skinnier.
You have about 20 seconds left.
Mm.
Okay, let's see what we've come up with. Everyone seemed to be doing really good. Usually, the reason why I'm doing this is because, like I said, there are compare and contrast essay questions on tests in the future. And for some reason, everyone struggles with them. What ends up happening inevitably is they go to picture 1 and they write down everything they see. And then they go to picture 2 and they write down everything they see. And that's not compare and contrast. Compare and contrast is actually discussing those similarities and differences, which is what I heard almost all of you doing in here today. So good job. That gives me hope for the future that we know what compare and contrast means. I've had some classes in the past that have not. So let's start off with the easy one. What's a similarity? Anyone? Yeah.
They're portraying the same imagery.
Yeah. So they're portraying the same imagery. Yes. What else?
Marrying.
That's the same imagery.
I know, I'm just,
They have the same purpose. They're both trying to evoke pity from the viewer. They both have the same purpose. They also hold the same function, but you wouldn't know that unless I told you they're both in churches. Yay! They both are exhibited in churches. One of them is in Germany and the other one is in Italy. So a bit of a difference there.
Would you say the purpose is persuasion?
Yes, the purpose would be persuasion, persuading you to think a different specific thing. It could also be obviously religious in purpose, trying to make you contemplate your religion specifically. But yeah, it's definitely trying to persuade. One of them is trying to persuade you to donate money to the church. The other one is trying to persuade you that if you don't change your ways, you're going to go to hell. So they both have different purposes, kind of, but the same purpose at the same time. I'm sure you can tell which one's trying to convince you to donate money, which one's telling you you're going to go to hell. But hey, we'll get into that in a second. What are some differences?
Jesus' head on one, there's a throne, a crown, and then facing towards the people.
Yeah. So in the left one, he's facing directly to you and he has a crown of thorns on his head. Usually if something's facing directly to you, it's a bit off-putting. That's what it's trying to do. The other one, he's not directly looking at you. There's not a crown. What else?
The one on the right has more anatomical features.
Yes, so this one is proportionally and anatomically correct. This one is not in any form or fashion anatomically or proportionally correct. What else? Oh, sorry, Sam. Sam had his up first. They're made of very different materials. So the one from Germany, the Röntgen Pietà, is made of wood, a much more malleable source. And Michelangelo's is made of marble, which is a lot harder, but also a lot cleaner. Those two materials give a very different appearance. The wood, of course, has texture and color. It has been painted and glazed. And the marble, very clean and pristine. Anyone online, what's a difference that you guys noticed?
The position of her hands. One's on his thigh and the other one is up.
Yeah.
The stand that Mary's sitting on is a lot more detailed in the first one.
Yeah. So the first one, she's on a throne. Technically, the second one, she's also on a throne, but the first one has a lot more detail. Specifically, these little flowers on bottom. Those flowers do something. So back when this was first exhibited during the medieval era, blood came out of those flowers. They would pump animal blood through them. Yeah. Pretty dark, huh? Yeah. So yeah, the details are a bit different for each one. This one does not have those flowers. It does not pump out blood. It is not dark. The tone of this one is obviously very light. The tone of this one not light at all. Yeah. Once again, you can probably tell which one's telling you you're going to go to hell if you don't change your ways. Any other differences that you guys noticed?
Well, yeah. Did anyone say the throne?
Yeah. The big one that the first class missed was facial expressions. Michelangelo's Mary, obviously a very peaceful, serene facial expression. The Röntgen Pietà, Mary looks angry, and Christ looks like he's in pain. So a lot more facial expression going on in the Röntgens versus Michelangelo's.
I had one thing, when I put it on Ron, it's showing a more powerful king, like a recognizable thing. Shameful pity, trying to convey the throne in remembrance and Germany. And then I put on the Michelangelo, he's actually showing his artwork and being really precise and true.
Yeah. So those of you online, what Brandon said is Michelangelo was definitely showing off his artistic talents in his Pietà versus Röntgen's was more interested in expressing the theme, which is very true. So obviously Röntgen's Pietà, like I said, was from Germany. Germans for forever. Obviously, this was made in the Dark Ages, so the medieval Dark Era. They've been concerned with emotional expressions. It's called angst or angst. They still do it today. If you guys have ever seen Edvard Munch's The Scream, the guy screaming, that's German expressionism. That's what they're known for, that angst, expressing emotions. So what we see here is an early example of angst, or trying to express or evoke emotions from people. As I said, this one obviously trying to make you feel uncomfortable about your position with your religion. This one is, on the other hand, trying to get you to donate money so they can keep making sculptures like this. So a very different purpose, even though both of them have that title of pity. And it was a pretty popular subject matter and title to work with. There's a whole lot of these if you ever Google Pietà. Of course, Michelangelo is going to be the first one to pop up, but there's a lot of them. And that is a great example of like briefly how you can do formal theory. You just have to find something that has a similar composition or theme or style and compare the two. You can do that with almost anything because history and art history are extremely repetitive. Styles keep popping up, trends keep popping up, and subject matter keeps rotating in and out. So important to keep in mind as you're writing things going forward that that is an option for you to use when you're trying to analyze an artwork. And it is a little bit harder, obviously, and more advanced than just writing down what you see. Oh yeah. And that takes us into today. Yesterday we started graphic design, that particular medium and genre. Today we're going to finish graphic design and begin sculpture, which is one of the reasons why I chose some sculptures for us to start with, because we're going to use those for vocabulary examples in a moment. But first we're going to finish graphic design. Just a brief recap of yesterday's events, because we did that kind of later. Graphic design is all about trying to create eye-catching and memorable imagery, graphics, and typography in order to get your idea or add over to the viewer so that they'll want to take interest in whatever it is you're trying to get them to take interest in. Often used in music videos, games, logos, advertisements, commercials, apps, all of those. Typography is the technique of using specific kinds of font to showcase whatever it is you're trying to create and sell. And of course, the logo is a trademark. Title sequence we're going to be looking at today. Those are the graphics found at the very beginning of a movie or a TV show that helps set the tone for the entire whatever it is you're watching to follow. And an early example of graphic design is the ambassador's advertisements for that particular play by Toulouse-Lautrec. Once again, graphic design is probably the most lucrative art form today. We see it all the time, everywhere. And most of the time it's about eye-catching typography and displays working together to try and get you to do something. Of course, Donald Meeker is a great example of typography being everywhere and graphic design being extremely important because we need it to be able to understand directions and buy stuff. I mean, our economy runs on buying stuff, so. Oh, and that is where we stopped, I do believe, in this class. So Heidi Cody's, we didn't talk about this one, did we?
No.
The other class did. Okay. Heidi Cody's American Alphabet is another great example of the power of logos and typography. So a lot of brands have obviously specific fonts and types that are they're associated with their logo. A lot of them really, really memorable. This one is from 2000 something, I think 2004. So these logos have been updated. That's another thing with typography is it constantly has to update with the times. They can't stick with the same logo. They do have to slightly change it to appeal to newer audiences, but we can still probably figure out a lot of these and what they mean. For example, let's start with the, well, let's see, what letters in here do you recognize as logos? Huh?
I can recognize the C as Coke and M as the
C is not Coke, but the M is an M&M.
The S of Starburst.
S is Starburst, yeah. Eggo for the E. K is Kool-Aid, yeah.
O for Oreo.
Yep. See, you guys recognize a lot of these.
The puff.
The I for ice.
Yeah. The candy.
Yeah, yep. So to do this, Heidi Cody just took the first letter of these logos and made, of course, these are all American brands, or they were at the time, American owned and manufactured brands. They aren't, a lot of them are now. To put those logos behind light boxes and make an American alphabet, and this is what all of those letters are. And like I said, since 2000, a lot of these have been updated and changed. So the power of logos and typography, very important. You guys are still reading through. I'm usually good until I get to the Q and I can never remember the Q-tips. And I never remember the X because I don't think we even have X for detergent anymore.
Oh, no, there's still extra.
Oh, I haven't seen it in a long time.
Usually
I was just
like
by Tide.
mineral or something.
I always either just get the Gain or Tide. I don't look at any others. Whisk. I don't think I've seen whisk either.
I know, like when it says what it is, I know, but then when I look at the letter.
Yeah, because it's changed so much. Logos are an easy way to identify companies and whatever it is the product that they're trying to sell. Like Walmart, Google, Apple, Disney's has changed since then. McDonald's has changed since then. Starbucks is the same. Coca-Cola is the same. Target's the same. But yeah, so they change. Of course, one of the very, very easily recognizable logos is LV for Louis Vuitton. That particular logo has been around since 1854, a very long time. And it has remained relatively the same. Of course, they add those little flowers and stars to it sometimes, but the LV has been around for forever as a logo. Recently, Louis Vuitton has been partnering with other companies and famous artists to try and branch out and appeal to larger audiences. Like I think they just did one with the NBA or something. Not too long ago, like 2 months ago. And every few years, they also work with really, really famous artists as well, such as Kusama and Jeff Koons. The artists that they choose to work with are extremely popular at the moment. They aren't choosing just random people, they're choosing highly sought after and collected artists. That's because they're trying to appeal to not just people that collect the luxury bags, but also people that collect art by combining the two and making a massive amount of money off of the deals.
Jeff Koons did the ones that had like the famous artwork.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to start off with Kusama. Kusama was the first artist, well, Yayoi Kusama was one of the first artists that they ever collabed with. She's really well known for polka dots on soft, cushiony items in phallic shapes or pumpkin. Sometimes they're pumpkin. Usually not. For these collaborations, they not only redesign the bags and merchandise, they also redesign the entire store, both interior and exterior. So it basically turns it to not just a basic collaboration, but art and a gallery opening and installation itself. Once again, appealing to a different audience that's pretty wealthy. Art collectors are known for putting down a lot of money for stuff. Like I said, they would have gallery openings for these shows, just like you would for an art gallery, in which select clientele would be invited to come to the show or opening. This is Yayoi Kusama herself. And she is, of course, carrying one of the products and surrounded by some of her artworks. This would have been just a photography place for people to take pictures as they enter into the opening. It's not just Kusama that's coming up with these ideas, though. Kusama would go and meet with Louis Vuitton's design team, and they would work together to produce this. So it's not just her by herself. It's not just Louis Vuitton by themselves. They're all working together as a design team to come up with this. So that's why this also would fall under graphic design, because you're using specific recognizable imagery from famous artists, combining that with collectible merchandise like Louis Vuitton bags that are already pretty sought after by people to create like this superpower mega thing that everyone wants. And of course, they also, like I said, redo the exterior of the buildings too. They do this for their major stores like the one in New York, London, Bilbao, and LA. So they don't do it to like all of the stores, just a few select major ones that get the most foot traffic. And of course, like I mentioned, they also worked with Jeff Koons. Jeff Koons is more well known for his balloon animals. Oh gosh. So these things, he's more well known for these sculptures. Obviously very easily digestible. They come in really small sizes and really, really huge sizes. And they were really, really popular for a long period of time, which is the reason why people would go and try to buy his bags that he was making. Like this one is a small one and it's $21,000. And of course, these are mass produced too. Not like he hand makes them. There's a factory making them. So he does something that's akin to pop art, just in an era that isn't pop art era today. Something that's easily digestible, easily recognizable, and that people will gladly purchase, including these bags. So for Jeff Koons' collaboration with Louis Vuitton, he copied masterpiece paintings from master artists like Van Gogh, Da Vinci, Fragonard, Monet, and Peter Paul Rubens, really, really famous artists. Their artworks sell for a whole lot of money, like a Botticelli this last weekend just sold for $92 million. So we're talking a lot. He copies those paintings by hand, and then he has the copies printed onto these bags with the actual artist's name embossed over top, and of course, the traditional LV logo. Your little stars and flowers, a JK for Jeff Koons, and a reference here to Jeff Koons' actual art, the little dog. Once again, that's on all of the bags. This particular series was set up quite a bit different from Kusama's. They actually made the stores look like a museum. So the interiors, he would have the copies of the masterpieces along with information about his copy and the actual artwork itself, like the original. And then they have pedestals. Pedestals in a gallery setting are where you put sculptures. But on these pedestals, they displayed the bags. So basically making the sculptures look like, well, the bags look like their art themselves. So it's literally set up like a gallery or museum would be. Once again, they had a big opening. This particular series was so popular that they did a part 2 with him. Both of them sold out very fast, and those bags have gone up in price quite a bit since then because they're highly collected. Once again, due to the fact that it appeals to not just designer handbag collectors, but also art collectors. So once again, for this, Jeff Koons would have met with Louis Vuitton's design team, worked with them to hash out all the details of what he was going to do to come up with this idea. And of course, once again, they redesigned the outside of the stores as well. So yeah, graphic design, logos, pretty powerful, pretty awesome. So sometimes graphic design can be elevated by combining things with higher arts like Yayoi Kusama and Jeff Koons. Sometimes graphic design can be quite simplistically used, such as posters. Posters, of course, exist to try and get information out to a large number of people as quickly as possible. oftentimes with posters, it's not about monetary value. It's just about, hey, come see this, come do this, come buy this, come think this. Posters should be very concise with their visual announcement to their viewer. We don't want to make it too complex. We want it to be short, sweet, and memorable. Such as Shepard Fairey's Hope poster. This came out for Obama's second presidential campaign. For this, Shepard Fairey took a photograph of Obama, like Andy Warhol would do, and made a silk screen print of that photograph, printing it in red, white, and blue, and overlaying the word hope on top. So very simple, easy. He was able to make a ton of copies because it's a silk screen print. But the message is also very easy and does exactly what a poster should do. So of course we have Obama in red, white, and blue. That symbolizes Obama as being American, which is good for a presidential campaign. And then of course the slogan of hope down below. So Obama is hope is what this poster is saying. We even have the O from the hope being echoed on Obama's lapel because his name starts with an O. Very simple message. Obama is American. Obama is hope. Gets it across the viewers very quickly, very easily. This poster sold millions and millions of copies. I was living in Chicago when Obama's second campaign was going on. Obama's from Chicago. These posters were everywhere. Everywhere. You couldn't go like a few feet without seeing them. Shepard Fairey, originally nearly homeless. He was almost homeless. He was, of course, an Obama supporter. That's the whole reason why he did this. He didn't do it to make money. He just did it to get his ideas out to people. The posters became so popular, people started paying for them to be made. Obama's campaign team even caught on to them and purchased a large amount of them. So Shepard Fairey originally didn't plan on making any money on this. He just wanted to get his ideas out, but he made millions. He made a few $1 million off of it. Unfortunately, and here's the story of plagiarism, don't do it. He used a photograph of Obama to make this, like I mentioned, from a newspaper. That photo was copywritten. The newspaper sued Shepard Fairey. The newspaper won. Shepard Fairey lost all of the money that he made. Don't plagiarize. Very powerful poster with an interesting backstory to it as well. Campaign posters, advertising ideas, thoughts, opinions, trying to sell you things. That's usually where we come across posters these days. All of them need to be concise in order for us to be able to quickly look at them, but also powerful enough that we actually remember them later on. I learned last period that you guys in Texas didn't really see these posters. And I was like surrounded by them. I think it's a nice poster. Like, I'm not super political. Like, I'm a libertarian, I'll just tell you. So I'm not Democrat or Republican. I waste my vote. But I like this poster as art. I think it's pretty impressive. Olympic is another example of using very quick and concise graphics to get your point across. Olympic was a series created by Jonathan Barnbrook, and it's actually, well, it isn't anymore, it used to be. It was a downloadable app that you could get on your phone, and you would download this app, and all of these would be available for wallpaper choices. This is the black and white version. They actually look like this in color. Barnbrook made these because he was sick of advertisements during the Olympics. So Super Bowl's coming up, right? I don't watch football. Like, it's like almost here, right? So during the Super Bowl, these companies spend millions of dollars to get the specific time slot for their commercial advertisement to run, and to run multiple times. We're all familiar with that. Certain ads are extremely memorable, some are not. During the Olympics, it's the same deal. When these companies want to advertise during the Olympics, they spend a lot of money to do so. And oftentimes they'll have athletes in the ads. For example, the last Olympics, which was a long time ago, since the last one was canceled technically, advertised one of the gymnasts using Bounty paper towels. Or the one in which Michael Phelps is shown drinking Coca-Cola. So they advertise with these famous athletes, and Barnbrook was very irritated. Number one, because he didn't like the ads interrupting the Olympics. Number two, because he took issue with the fact that these athletes probably aren't using these products. Like, do you guys think Michael Phelps is chugging Coca-Cola all the time? I don't know. He did weed, so who knows? Probably not, though. He's probably not chugging Coca-Cola all the time. But in the ad, it looks like he is. So Barnbrook had a few issues with all of these ads. So he made this series. Obviously, this one is Coca-Cola, and it's about the Michael Phelps ad right here. All of these are about different ads that he saw that he was super annoyed with. Some of them a lot easier to understand than others. And like I said, it was a downloadable app that you could change your wallpaper add. He made you pay for it, though. I wouldn't pay for this. Like, I think it was $5. I'm cheap. I wouldn't pay for this. And I like art, and I wouldn't pay for this. There's several layers of graphic design involved in this series. Layer number one, obviously, choosing the logos from these major companies that would be recognizable and pairing them with a particular Olympic sport or something related to the Olympics, and doing so in a way to get his point across quickly and easily. Second of all, there's a second layer of graphic design. He made it into an app. Apps are a form of graphic design. There's whole teams that are dedicated to making them and manufacturing them. So you download your app and then you navigate your way through the app. Those different navigation settings are designed by teams of people that are educated on how to do that. That's another form of graphic design. So there's a few layers there of graphic design. That takes us to title sequence, another thing that is made by a team of artists working together to come up with the best shots and images that will showcase what the overall tone or theme of your TV show or movie is going to be. The book gives the example of Kyle Cooper's Seven. We're going to watch that one after the other one. But yeah. Because I feel like most people probably haven't seen Kyle Cooper's Seven. It looks like a good movie. I haven't seen it either. Because it's not on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu. It's on Amazon Prime, but you got to pay for it. I don't do that. I already pay enough for my streaming. I'm not going to pay anymore. But our first example of a title sequence is very simple, and I think everyone's probably seen it, most likely. And that is Full House. Full House does a lovely job on their title sequence of showcasing what exactly the TV show is going to be about. Yeah. This is a title sequence, guys. So they choose these specific shots, put them together, and add a music background to it to give you the overall tone of what that show's probably going to be like. So of course, listening to the song and the images, you get the idea or sense that this show's probably going to be about families. And guess what? It's a family show. It's happy, it's lighthearted. And that's exactly what this title sequence does for you. Our last class wanted to listen to all of it. Now, my last class also argued that that one was different from the others. That's because this is the very first episodes. And the others are different. So you get to see a little bit of history there from Full House. A very, very different title sequence is Kyle Cooper 7. Very, very different. It's not happy, family friendly, or lighthearted at all. But I feel like the easiest way to understand title sequence is to look at something that everyone's seen before you look at something that not many people have seen. So yeah, here's Kyle Cooper 7. We'll watch this and then we'll figure out if we can understand what that tone of the movie is going to be like. So that's the title sequence. What do you think that movie's going to be like?
Action,
A horror.
Kind of. A mystery, psychological thriller kind of thing, yeah. So that's kind of given to you with the idea of the different letters being cut and pasted together and that dude collecting different things and the lobotomy and the dude's face being blacked out with a marker. So it looks like it's a movie that's going to keep you thinking and keep you on the edge of your seat. And you already got that just from the title sequence. So it helps to set the tone for what's to follow very well, which is the whole purpose of the title sequence. So it does its job well. And once again, title sequences are made by whole teams of design artists working together to come up with those clips that are going to portray the tone. That takes us into the very last form of graphic design, which is interactive design, easily seen in, once again, apps on phones as well as games. Unfortunately, your book does not reference games. It references Bjork's Biophilia. Everyone in here is too young, myself included, to know who Bjork is. You might have heard of her. She's a music artist from Iceland who's known for doing very odd crazy things, as well as producing very artsy, edgy music. In 2011, she decided her new music album, instead of releasing it on like iTunes like normal person or in a CD format, she was going to make it a downloadable app. You can still buy it. It's on iTunes. I think it's like $14. You could go to your store, purchase the app. Then when you get the app, it's very interactive. You go through different steps and stages to get to songs. You don't just get like a list of songs like a normal iTunes store purchase or whatever. You have to actually go through different steps. Some of the songs are games that you can change the song and work with it yourself. So it's very different in terms of a music album, but it's Bjork, so that makes sense if you know who she is. If you don't, you should Google her sometime. She made that same year a downloadable Christmas version. It was free. They had that on the iTunes store too until like a couple years ago. I downloaded it. It's pretty fun actually. So the Christmas version is super simple. It's not as complex as the music album, but it's just 4 rings that make a Christmas tree shape. And each ring has a dot on it, and you can click the dot and the dot makes a tone. And if you play the right sequence at the right time, you can make it play Jingle Bells, and then you can send it to a friend as a Christmas card, and then they can play it too. So it's kind of fun, kind of neat. They don't have it anymore, like I said. It's kind of sad that they don't have that one anymore because it was actually pretty neat. We are going to watch the workings of the app though for the music video, or not music video, music album for a bit, just so you can get a sense of how that would work. But I mean, we all know how apps work. You interact with them and go through different stages. If you've ever played games on your phones, that's an interactive app created by a design team. If you've ever played games, those are also interactive graphic designs. So, yeah. So that's opening the app. That's what happens when you open it. Every single one of these little colorful dots is a song.
They say back then,
So you'd click on one of the colorful dots, it would take you to this song. The songs do different things.
our universe was a cold black egg.
This one's a game, so her singing goes on in the background and you can change the notes depending on what you're clicking on here, and you can save it or clear it and redo it. Do what?
I wouldn't be able to just listen to the album.
Nope. You're part of making it. So no. Nope, you can't just listen to the album for this one. It doesn't work like that. You gotta put in some work. So yeah, you get it. It's kind of different and nifty. If you're someone like Matthew and I who just want to listen to the music, it's a bit aggravating. But if you're into like new innovative things, it's definitely that. It is definitely new and innovative, that's for sure. It's got you covered there. But Bjork is known for not really caring about money so much as trying new artsy things. She's a very artsy person. She's tried her hand at making actual art before instead of just music, as well as fashion. So, a creative person. And like I said, interactive designs also fall under gaming. A lot of the artists that are going, well, people that are getting art degrees here now, that are not super old, because we have a lot of old people taking art classes here for kicks. They got free time, they take painting classes. That's their choice. But the younger people that come to school here for an art degree oftentimes will go for graphic design, and that's because they want to become video game developers in the future and understand how to use that software and create those designs. So they would need to take art courses as well as some software courses too. So yeah, interactive graphic design is quite a newer thing. But it does appeal to a large number of artists today, and it's one of the main reasons why graphic design is such a large pool of artists right now. But that is actually it for graphic design. There's not too much. It's all about advertising and trying to get ideas sold and things bought. That takes us into sculpture. Sculpture is not as fun as movies or graphic design. Sculpture has been around for a really, really long time. With sculpture, we're going to be going through just vocabulary because there's a lot of vocabulary with sculpture. I'm not going to be talking about the objects that we're going to be looking at because we're going to look at them when we go through the art history section. We're just going to be using them as references for vocab, for examples for vocab. So like I said, there's a lot of vocabulary words for sculpture. Starting with freestanding. Freestanding is a kind of sculpture that you can walk all the way around and see all of the sides of it. So the Rotterdam Pietà and Michelangelo's Pietà, those are not attached to anything. You can walk all the way around them. They are freestanding. Although Michelangelo's right now is butted up against a wall, but it's not attached to the wall. Relief is a type of sculpture that is attached to a background. There's two kinds of relief. There's low relief and high relief. So basically, your two kinds of sculptures that exist are either freestanding or reliefs. Freestandings are not attached to anything. Reliefs are attached to something. Low reliefs are reliefs that only slightly project from the background, such as the face of a president on a coin. Usually, if it's less than halfway projected out of the background, it is a low relief.
I don't think the screen is shared.
Oops. Now is it shared?
Yes.
Okay. High relief is a relief that is over halfway projecting from the background that it's attached to. Modeling is a type of sculpture in which you're adding materials to other materials to create your sculpture. So let's say you have your lump of clay, you need more clay, you get more clay, you add to it. That's modeling. Usually with modeling, it has to be something soft and pliable. You can't add to marble, so you can't model marble. I'm trying very hard to remind myself tomorrow to bring ceramic objects. We're doing ceramics tomorrow. We're not making it because they won't let us into the studio. But we can look at stuff. Now, Need one volunteer in class. I don't care who. Okay. It doesn't matter who. You just need to stand here. Thank you, Brandon. Brandon is going to illustrate the difference between a freestanding sculpture and a relief sculpture for us, starting with freestanding.
Let me move around.
Yes, so Brandon here, let's pretend he's the sculpture. We can walk all the way around him. Yay, we can see all the sides of him. He is freestanding. And the tougher one, relief. It's gonna take a little thought process today. You're doing better than
Be
the
shadowing,
morning.
right?
Oh, you did a lot better than the morning class. Heck yes, that's a relief. You got to be attached to the background for a relief. So I can no longer walk all the way around Brandon because he's attached to the wall. He, however, would obviously be a high relief because he is over halfway out of the wall. He cannot be a low relief because he cannot go into the wall. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah. I once had a student ask me if we could illustrate a low relief, and I was like, can you go into? No. And I guess Brandon could have technically demonstrated modeling too. You just need to put his jacket on. Modeling is just adding to. Some more vocab. Armature. Armature is internal support system within a sculpture, basically the skeleton of the sculpture. Not all sculptures will have an armature, but if they're big and heavy, they're probably going to need it. Otherwise, they're going to fall. So just like our bodies need that internal support system of our skeleton to stand up, some sculptures need that too. Substitution sounds like a complex word, but it's not. It's just substituting one material for another. So let's say when I go to Rose's, I don't like refried beans, so I substitute for black beans. Substitution. In sculpture, substitution means, oops, did I run out of bronze? Well, then let's make this in marble instead. Substituting. One material instead of another. Molds are used during the casting process. Casting is a method in which you're making many copies of sculptures. And molds are what you use to, well, work as a mold. It's that lovely little container that you can pour your molten bronze into, and it'll harden and take the shape of whatever you made your mold in the shape of. Do you guys know that toilets have molds?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so toilets are ceramic, and to make them, they make large plaster molds, and they will then pour the ceramics into those plaster molds so they can make a bunch of copies really easily. They pay artists to make these molds. I know that because the ceramic artists at UTVB used to work for Kohler. He used to make toilet molds. If you ever go to his studio and you look up at the ceiling, there's a whole bunch of toilet molds. And he likes to brag about it. He said it's the best paying job he's ever had. They paid him a lot of money. They also pay artists to figure out glaze colors on the toilet. So if you are ever in the business of shopping for toilets, you know they come in different colors and different glazes. They pay artists to come up with those different glaze colors and to figure out the mixtures. Carving is the opposite of modeling. So modeling was adding to, carving is removing. So carving would be your wood or marble. Those are objects that you can't add to, but you can take away from. Of course, if you take too much away from marble or wood, you can't put it back on. And installation and site specific, those are two kinds of artworks that technically are not always sculptures, but they don't really have enough material to make up their own chapters in this textbook. So they are thrown in at the end of sculpture. An installation is a type of artwork that transforms the entire space. Sometimes it's visual, sometimes it's auditory, sometimes it's sensory, sometimes it's all of those things. So let's say I wanted to make an installation in this art room in which I filled up the entire room with hot Cheetos. That's an installation. I transformed the entire space to a room of hot Cheetos. I say that because it's been done. We'll look at an example tomorrow. Site-specific is a work of art that was made for a specific space or location. It doesn't work anywhere else. It only works in that one spot. And like I said, we're going to be going through all of these vocab words and just looking at examples. That's all we're doing for sculpture, just looking at examples. Starting with freestanding, which I think we've all pretty well grasped. Freestanding, it's an object or sculpture that you can walk all the way around and see all of the sides, such as Martin Puryear's CFAO. So this is one side of the wheelbarrow sculpture, this is the other side. You can walk all the way around it. Another Martin Puryear that you can walk all the way around, unless you believe in bad luck, and then you shouldn't. That takes us to low relief. So remember, with relief, it's something that is attached to a background. There's two kinds of relief. There's low relief and high relief. We're going to start off with low relief, meaning the sculpture is less than halfway protruding from the background. The sculpture that I'm referring to in particular is the relief sculpture of Hammurabi and one of the gods of Mesopotamia here. So here Hammurabi is talking to one of the Mesopotamian gods, and the god is giving him authority to rule over the people of Mesopotamia. This is less than halfway protruding from the background. You will definitely be able to tell the difference in a moment. Another low relief, less than halfway protruding from the background. This is the Stele of Akhenaten and his family. Less than halfway protruding from the background, the Panathenaic procession. Once again, another example of low relief would be a president's head on a coin, less than halfway protruding from the background. High relief is over halfway protruding from the background, so now you can definitely tell the difference. This dude was so far protruding from the background that his arms and legs were not even attached to the background. That's why they broke off. So here we have this man who is only attached via this elbow and this back hip and buttocks cheek. Other than that, he's not attached to the background, and his ankle down here is also attached. So that's why this arm broke off. It's not touching the stone at all. There was no support for it to be attached. Same with this one. He's lost a limb here, a limb here. That's because it wasn't attached at all. It was completely free from the background. So high relief over halfway out of the background. Another high relief over halfway out of the background. This is from the tomb of Augustus, Emperor Augustus. These guys, a bunch of them aren't even attached to the background, which is why there's such deep shadows on them. They're attached to other figures. And another one, Nike adjusting her sandal. Nike in Greek mythology is a messenger for the gods and goddesses. They would have had wings. She also would have had a head, which I think is assumed, but she would have had a head here. She also would have had two pairs of wings and an arm. None of those things were attached to the background. They were completely unattached, which is also why they broke off. She is also over halfway protruding from the background. This is into modeling. Modeling, if you remember, is something you're doing with a malleable medium and you're adding to it to create the object or shape that you're wanting to achieve. Usually modeling is done with clays, once again, something really soft and pliable. This is a Korean vase. It would have been thrown on a potter's wheel with clay. This is a terracotta man from the archaic Greek people. Archaic time, they only used clay. Later on, they used other materials. Terracotta, very soft, malleable. This is life size, by the way. He would be a life size figure, and he has a whole body. This is just the upper torso. So yeah, a full size figure in clay using modeling. This particular figure, to do it, he's made of a bunch of cylinders, meaning he's hollow in the neck, head, torso, and his arms. You can kind of see in his arms since they broke off that they're hollow cylinder shapes. To do cylinders, they use something called a coil method. How many of you guys have played with Play-Doh and made snakes? That's the coil method. So for the coil method, you just roll out things into long, thin strands, you wrap it around, then you put on another layer, and then you smooth out the sides. That's coil method. You guys could have done that as kids. I don't know. But this whole figure that's life size is done using that same method. Pretty simple. And that takes us to some more examples of modeling. Once again, clay. This is Greek pottery, black figure pottery. That just means the figures are black. Red figure pottery. That just means the figures are red. All of these are once again done with clay, modeled. Both of these would have been done on a potter's wheel. And it takes us to the next vocabulary word, armature. Armature is that internal support system that some sculptures have. Not all sculptures, just some. Usually if they're really big and heavy, they're going to have it. But here you can really see how that internal support system works, and you understand why I called it basically a skeletal system. It would be inside of the object, and you would shape the object around it. So yeah, there's the armature for that elephant there. A great example of armature being used is Viola Frey. Viola Frey sculptures are huge. This sculpture is bigger than me. I am 5'8". The sculpture is a lot bigger than me. It's huge. It's all made of clay. Clay is heavy. Because clay is heavy and this is huge, it needs that internal support system to keep it sitting up and keep those arms from breaking off. Without that internal support system, this thing would have collapsed a long time ago. You can even see the sections that she had to use to make it, because the kilns would not have been big enough to fire this all in one piece. So this is made of pieces, and then she had to assemble them after they were done. That takes us to casting. Casting, once again, is making copies using molds. So right here is a mold. For anyone that is wondering what a mold is, it's a little casing that you can pour ceramic slip into. That's really, really liquidy ceramics, or bronze, or depending on what kind of mold you're using. Plaster won't hold up to bronze. Plaster will melt. So you use that mold to make copies. Just like with prints, sometimes artists want to be able to make many, many copies. I know that Auguste Rodin's family still owns the rights to his molds, and occasionally they'll make a new copy if they need money. So things like that. The molds, they don't ever deteriorate. There's different kinds of casting. Today's contemporary casting has greatly improved with technologies. We use a lot of plastic molds now, and silicone molds. They stand up to heat really well. Back in the old days, they did something called the lost wax casting method, which is how this particular figure was made. We're going to learn about the lost wax casting method tomorrow. No one does it anymore. That's why it's called the lost wax casting method. It's time consuming, and your molds you can only use it once, which kind of defeats the purpose of casting. But yeah. Quickly, our last thing, substitution for today. So you're on the same track as the last class. I don't have to remember where we stopped. Substitution just means substituting one thing for another. So when you're thinking of Greek sculptures, you don't usually think of bronzes, but all Greek sculptures were originally bronze. They were substituted for marble when Rome took over. Rome invaded ancient Greece and they needed bronze for weapons and shields and armor. So they melted down all of the original bronze statues that the Greeks made and they substituted that for marble. So almost all of the statues that everyone thinks of when they think of ancient Greece are actually Roman copies, such as this one. You can tell a Roman copy by these stupid stumps and rocks that they've included. They had to include stumps and rocks and little supports because marble is a lot heavier than bronze. And without them, those statues would have collapsed. So here's our little support system for this guy. Our support system for this guy is a rock on the other side. That'll pop up again in the Renaissance because Michelangelo didn't know that they were not original. And he added it into the David. But yeah, tomorrow we're gonna pick up on lost wax casting methods so we can figure out how this dude was made. And that ends it for today. Remember that you guys have a gallery report to be working on. If you need help, just reach out to me and let me know. And that, I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye, guys.
We're trying to make fun of the class. People on that one.